Today, we're finally giving Gen X the attention no one asked for, which is kind of fitting because that's basically Gen X's brand, existing quietly in the background while boomers and millennials fight over who ruined housing and renting and the cost of living and everything in between. So who exactly is Gen X? If you were born between 1965 and 1980, congratulations, you're it. You survived riding the back of a station wagon without a seatbelt, and you remember when streaming meant your Nintendo cartridge wasn't working because you forgot to blow in it. But to really get why Gen Xers matter, we have to look at the culture swap they crawled out of. Let's start with the obvious. Gen X is the middle child of generations. Boomers are loud. They're like the oldest sibling who reminds everyone about Woodstock. Millennials are the youngest, constantly accused of killing industries like napkins, mayonnaise, and straws. And Gen Z's the TikTok baby filming all of this for clout and for likes. Gen X, they're the kid who quietly got a C+ on a math test, went back to their room, and played a little Contra. This forgotten thing isn't just a meme. It actually is a smaller cohort. Gen Xers' births compared to boomers are minimal at best, and they don't dominate politics or media like millennials or Gen Z. Which means when people talk about generations, Gen X usually gets about 5 seconds of airtime before someone asks, okay, what about avocado toast? If boomers were raised on stability and millennials were raised on participation trophies, Gen X grew up on microwaves and latchkeys. Their parents, boomers, were busy discovering divorce rates and working 9 to 5. So Gen X kids were left to themselves, to raise their siblings, to do whatever they needed to do. They'd come home from school, unlock the door, heat up a Hot Pocket, and watch MTV until their retinas melted. If it wasn't unsafe, exactly, but it was a training program in self-reliance. Gen X learned early that if you wanted to survive, you better know how to cook ramen noodles with a broken stove and a questionable extension cord. Compared to later generations who grew up with helicopter parents monitoring their every sneeze, their every cough, their every bad dream, Gen X had something else. We had freedom. We biked around neighborhoods without smartphones. We made prank calls from landlines and occasionally set small fires just to see what would happen. Boomers got Vietnam and Watergate. Gen X got the aftermath. We got the AIDS crisis, the Challenger explosion, the Cold War dragging on forever. Institutions weren't just flawed, they were ridiculous. So Gen X responded the only way we knew how, with sarcasm. From Beavis and Butthead to Clerks to Nirvana muttering, "Here we are now, entertain us." Gen X became masters of ironic detachment. Their culture, my culture, we had heroes who weren't glamorous icons. They were slackers in flannel shirts who couldn't be bothered to care. Think Kurt Cobain, Winona Ryder, or basically every character in Reality Bites. This is a huge difference from millennials, who are earnest idealists, and Gen Z, who are full-on activists. Gen X was like, save the whales, sure, but also, I've got band practice. We grew up analog. Rotary phones, cassette tapes, VHS tracking lines that haunted your dreams. Then as adults, we had to adapt to the digital revolution. Unlike boomers, who still type with one finger, Gen X actually learned the tech. They went from Atari to Napster to the iPhone without a complete and total meltdown. This makes us, Gen Xers, the ultimate bridge generation. We understand what life was like before the internet, but we also know how to reset the Wi-Fi router when it's acting up. Compared to millennials and Gen Z, who can't remember a word without Wi-Fi or a world without Wi-Fi, Gen Xers' relationships to tech is more skeptical. They don't need constant dopamine hits from TikTok. They're perfectly fine binge watching an entire season of Friends on DVD. Thank you very much. We don't mind old tech. We actually like old tech because it still works. We also love new tech. We love new tech because it's easier most of the time. So why don't we hear about Gen X as much? Easy. We're not dramatic. Boomers had protests, free love, and the me decade. Millennials had the 2008 crash, avocado wars, and killing Applebee's. Gen Z has climate anxiety and the internet collapsing, their attention spans, and their internet just changing who they are and what they do. Gen X, we're just kind of go on with it. Just deal with it. We raised ourselves. We got jobs, dealt with recessions, and we learned not to expect anyone else to notice anything about us. In fact, Gen X's motto could be, we're fine, don't worry about us, which ironically is why no one ever talks about them. Now, we've laid the groundwork, okay? We know what we're going to do. We know what we're going to talk about. The next couple of series episodes, I'm going to talk about a deeper dive into Gen X. We're going to look at things like how Gen X's work ethic compares to the hustle culture of millennials and the side hustle chaos of Gen Z, how their analog to digital childhood shaped the way we deal with technology, and how being sarcastic slackers turned into being surprisingly pragmatic adults. So stick around. Because while everyone else is busy pointing fingers at millennials and boomers, Gen X is in the corner quietly saying, yeah, we've been here the whole time. Don't worry about us. So that's what we're going to talk about, Gen X. Why is Gen X important today, tomorrow, and in the future? You see, Gen Xers, we don't have politicians in power. We have old people in power, like Donald Trump. We have younger people in power, like AOC. We don't have a lot of people of Gen X in actual power positions. Why? Because most of us don't want to deal with it. We don't want to deal with the stress and the stupidity. We see what politics does to people, and most of us don't want to deal with it. I'm at an age where I could run for office. I probably have good ideas, according to some people, but I'm not going to do it. It's just not worth it. It's not worth the stress and the anxiety. Most of Gen Xers, we sit by, we pay our bills, we do what we're supposed to do, we raise our family, we do our best to stay married, we do our best by our wives and husbands or spouses, we do our best by our children. We don't always do the best, but we do the best we can. Our kids, we raise differently. We kind of try to love them more, which probably ruined the next generations, and that's on us. But it's because we had no one to raise us. Growing up as a kid, me and my sisters, my mom wasn't around, my dad wasn't around. My real father was in a different state. My stepfather was always working or doing something, and my mom worked pretty late. So me and my sisters, we raised ourselves. My parents never asked what we did. They didn't care that we drank on the weekends. They didn't care that we smoked. They didn't care that we were hanging out with people. They didn't care that we were going to abandoned buildings and throwing rocks at the windows. They didn't care about any of that. They only cared if the school called or the police called because we did something that wrong. And if we didn't, we were fine. We were a generation that were allowed to go buy cigarettes for our parents and alcohol for our parents. No one cared. No one cared if we did illegal activities as long as nobody got hurt. We drove when we didn't have licenses. We cheated in school and no one cared. We watched movies we shouldn't have. I watched movies definitely I shouldn't have at a young age. Why? Because no one cared. Basically, if you could stay quiet, stay out of the way, you were perfect as a Gen Xer. And while I wasn't a perfect kid and I did a lot of dumb things, looking back as an adult, I really wish I had more parents in my life. I wish I had more of a relationship with my parents. Would it have made me a different person today? Maybe. Maybe would it have made me raise my kids differently? Maybe. But I do know that I think my over parenting is because I try to fill in that gap that my parents left. And I believe a lot of Gen Xers did that. And we don't know how to get out of that fact. I still do it today. I even do it with my grandkids sometimes. I'm in their lives too much. I don't give them the freedom they always need. So over this next 4 more episodes after this one, we're going to talk about how Gen Xers differ, how we're wired differently, how we're dealing with things differently, how we raised our kids differently, how we deal with money, finances, and the world differently, and how maybe, just maybe, the world can learn something from us. But no one's asking. No one's asking for our opinion. No one cares about our opinion. They care about the young, they care about the old, but the ones in between, the middle child, is kind of left to the side. So stay with me on this journey of Gen X and see if there's anything you learn. See if there's anything that you like. See if there's anything you change, or that maybe you should appreciate the Gen Xers in your life. Because we're out there. We're quiet, but we're out there. Thank you for watching.